I top cut the first Regulation I Regional Championship with Hooh. I was the number 2 overall seed after Swiss, and I only lost in top cut to the eventual champion, Andrew Ding. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I built my team, how I played my team, and of course, I will share with you the rental code itself so you can try it out, and I'll talk about my tournament run as well. But first, if you're not subscribed, you should subscribe. This is going to be the first of many Regulation I videos on this channel where I'm going to do multiple team reports with multiple different top players talking about how they built their teams. And of course, the podcast Tub Takes is going to have some awesome episodes coming up because Alex also top cut this tournament, and we've got a very special guest coming on tomorrow. It's Mr. Joey PokeAim himself is going to talk about how he top cut his first tournament on our channel. So look forward to that. And if you're not subscribed, you don't want to miss any of this. So subscribe. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about it. I'm really happy. I'm really excited. So this is the team that I used to go 10-1 at Milwaukee Regionals. As you can see here, I started out 7-0. I was on stream playing Pengi. I lost to the person who went 12-0, 11-0 in Swiss, Luca Paz, who got third place overall, who was on the same team pretty much that Andrew Ding used to win the tournament. I beat Andrew Ding, one of the 2 losses for him in the first round of day 2. Won out, got the second overall seed, and then played Andrew again in top 16 and lost to him. And I will talk more about how that matchup went as well in this video. But that was my run overall. So as you can see, with the exception of those 2 losses to very, very similar teams, I managed to beat every other team in the tournament that I played. And I think that this team is really, really strong. It's really good. So let's start from the beginning. How do you build a team early in the format? I think that's a very important question. It's not something that came naturally to me. I used to really struggle at the start of formats. And since I think 2023 San Diego, I've been doing a lot better at these early format regionals. And that process of the first Scarlet and Violet regional has really helped me learn and helped me grow as a player. And it's basically been my process for these early format regionals ever since then. We have a team report from that Pelipper team. We were one of the first players to, my building group, Tub Nation, was one of the first groups to really use Rain in that format where it was really strong. And so the way that I like to approach early formats is explore. A lot of people did very well at this tournament by using a team that they had used in Regulation G with 1 restricted and then slapped on a 2nd restricted on it. And I think that's a very high floor, low ceiling approach to the tournament. You're going to have a lot of comfort with your team, but you're not really seeing all the cool different things, new things that you can do that will really elevate the ceiling of your team. And of course, the winners did not use a team that we really had seen before in Regulation G. And I think Hooh is not something that you had really seen in Regulation G either. And so I was playing all sorts of different teams early on in the format. I was playing I tried Calyrex Shadow Zamazenta. I tried Koraidon, and I really liked the Koraidon Ice Rider and Koraidon Lunala teams. I thought I had a really strong version of both of those teams that I considered bringing, especially since I had brought Koraidon to Atlanta Regionals and gotten top 64 at that tournament. So I was very comfortable with the Koraidon teams, but I also thought that they were going to be, people were really going to expect Koraidon. It was very common on the ladder, and so I wanted to run something different. I wanted to run something that would beat the top 2 teams, in my opinion, which were Calyrex Shadow Zamazenta and the Koraidon Sun teams. And so as a result, I spent a lot of time exploring Kyogre. I spent a lot of time exploring like other Miraidon variants. And I just wanted to see what were the strongest tools in the format, I think is a really important thing to take away when you are testing out other teams. And so I really had 2 big conclusions when I was testing out the breadth of the format. And that the first one was that I thought that the Farigiraf Miraidon Iron Hands core, that was very common in Regulation G, of course. That was the core of the Arubega team. But that core I thought was still very strong. In hindsight, I don't know if that's true. But I thought at the time that, that is a very strong core into a lot of Ice Rider teams. It's very strong into a lot of the Shadow Rider Zamazenta and Shadow Rider Terapagos teams. And as a result, I really wanted to try to figure out the best way to use that core. The other thing that I was really impressed by was grimmsnarl. My friend Ursal who loves using grimmsnarl, he sent me a Calric Shadow Groudon team with grimmsnarl that was heavily based on the Rinya Sun variants that had done so well in 2022. And so I was testing that team out, and I thought Groudon was really bad, sadly. But I did think that the grimmsnarl on that team was really overachieving. And so in my head, I really wanted to find a way to use grimmsnarl or find a way to use the Miraidon for Farigiraf Iron Hands core that I thought matched up really well into the metagame. And then we had Tub Takes last week. And on Tub Takes last week, in our lead up to the regional, Alex and Michael were really talking up the Miraidon Ho-Oh core. Alex had used it on stream, and he had, and this team had been around a little bit. It's not like he built it for the first time. Of course, Marco Fierro had used this version of the team that Eric Bartlett used at Milwaukee. This is actually just the team that got second at EUIC from Dill, and Marco replaced the Incin, I believe, with a Ho-Oh on it. And so he has been laddering a lot with this team, and it also did very well at the regional. And Alex was laddering with that team and then changed to Iron Bundle Ogerpon Rock on stream, and he said this team was legitimately good. Like, he was very impressed by it on stream, and on our podcast, he talked it up a lot, and Michael talked it up a lot. Of course, Michael top cut with Ho-Oh Koraidon in this tournament as well, and we're going to see if we can get him on for a team report. We'll try to. At some point, eventually, we'll get him on for a team report, because his team was also very cool. But yeah, so they were talking it up, and I looked at it and I said, you know what? This team that Alex was using, it has the Miraidon Iron Hands Farigiraf core. It might be the strongest way to use that core that I wanted to use. And so I started out with that. I started out with that core and said, Ho-Oh is maybe the best partner for Miraidon. And so I tested it out. And I was testing out the variant that Alex was using, and it felt very strong. It had a couple pretty clear weaknesses. And it also had some very frustrating elements to it. In particular, it did not really have the positional flexibility that I wanted a team with Ho-Oh to have, because Ho-Oh is very strong because of Regenerator. It really likes switching out. It can take a lot of hits, and it can take a lot of damage, and it can switch out later on in the game after it's taken some damage and come back in later in the game and be at full health. But if you're running more frail Pokemon like Iron Bundle and Ogerpon on your team, then you don't really have that flexibility with it. Of course, Farigiraf and Iron Hands do have that flexibility, and Miraidon is so good because of Volt Switch that allows it to pivot effectively. And so that is something that you get to do with this team. But the Iron Bundle and Ogerpon didn't feel quite right for me. I think this version, one of Alex's coaching students did make day 2 with this version. This version is very strong overall. Alex was very adamant that you're not going to solve all the problems with this team, and of course, I found that out the hard way, that you can't really solve everything early format, but this was a version of the team that I started out with, and I was exploring a lot of options in that last 2 slots with Iron Bundle and Ogerpon being replaced. I actually really like the Ogerpon. I didn't like the Iron Bundle as much, but the Rockpon was really good, just because you really want a Grass type in that slot, or Grass or Ground type in that last slot, and we'll come to that. But yeah, the other frustrating thing about this team, or the team that Alex was using, was that it was max speed Timid Miraidon on that core, and that means you're playing a lot of Miraidon speed ties, and a lot of Koraidon speed ties, and a lot of Chenpao speed ties. And Iron Bundle helps alleviate that a little bit, but it's not very flexible, and so you end up playing those speed ties anyways a lot of the time. And I really wanted to avoid playing speed ties, so I was debating a few different Pokemon in that slot. I also so I was talking to Eric Bartlett, who ended up using the team that Marco Fierro had built or adapted, and was talking to him about that. I was also I saw this team that had done well in a Grassroots tour from Alfta Mayo, who dropped at 4-0. Always suspicious when someone drops at 4-0 in a tournament. It means they're trying to keep something hidden. And so I saw the Ursaluna Urshifu core. And I thought that was a very interesting route, and I tested that out as well. And so those were some of the ways that I had kind of built up ideas about how to use this. But I also was looking at Grimmsnarl as a possibility, because again, I was very impressed by Grimmsnarl in testing on other teams earlier, and in theory, I thought that Grimmsnarl could really help Miraidon. We saw, Joe Garte had done very well with Grimmsnarl Miraidon in Regulation G. We saw people had been testing Grimmsnarl Miraidon quite a bit in Regulation I as well. And I thought that Hooh would also benefit from screens. Iron Hands is so hard to take down with screens up, and so I thought grimmsnarl might be a natural fit on this team as well. It was one of my considerations. And then Rajan on Thursday before the regional DM me in the morning saying, I want to do Miraidon Hooh stuff, but I want to do it with grimmsnarl. And I said, you don't have to sell me on grimmsnarl. I want to do it with grimmsnarl too. And so we spent all day trying to figure out the grimmsnarl version of this team with these 5 Pokemon right here. The first thing that we tested in the last slot was Landorus Therian. And I think that you really want a ground type in that slot or a grass type in that slot because you need one more really effective switch in for Hooh. Again, the goal is to switch Hooh out. You want it to tank hits and then switch it out. And so you need something that can do that very effectively. Miraidon and Iron Hands can do that effectively. But yeah, we tested out Landorus Therian initially. And then eventually we kind of decided that Ursaluna might be the best Pokemon for the last slot. Now, the things that we were scared of with these 5 Pokemon were we were a little scared of Terapagos Calyrex Shadow Rider. That was very difficult. We were scared of Calyrex Shadow Zamazenta specifically with Raging Bolt. And in particular, a well-supported Raging Bolt could be very difficult for this core to beat. It was very reliant on Iron Hands or to throw specifically like a Draco Meteor at it, maybe get a couple Spirit Breaks off onto it. Not the easiest thing to do when we are boosting their electric type damage. And like, for example, the team that Wolf Glick used with a Koraidon Incin Raging Bolt, I think was one of the teams that I was very scared of facing in this tournament. And I did not thankfully face Wolf this tournament, but that was a team that I was scared of facing with Miraidon Hooh. And again, that's why you need a ground type in that last slot. Ursaluna really helps with those cores because it helps deal with the Raging Bolts on those cores. Similarly, opposing Miraidon can be very tricky because you don't have a lot of fairy resist. You're very reliant on Hooh as your fairy resist with this core. And so having a Ursaluna to threaten opposing Miraidon was also very important. But the last team that we were very scared of, and I didn't pull this up, hold up, I got this, was the team that ended up winning the regional, which was I had run into Luca on ladder a couple times. I had run into this core with the Grimmsnarl or with Whimsicott on ladder. And yeah, this team was around. We knew that this team was going to be heavily represented because going into the regional. We knew that a lot of top players in North America were using this team. And it kind of didn't matter because it's just a really hard team to beat. Like we considered Wo-Chen in the last slot on my team as like a hard counter to this team because this team actually does kind of struggle with like a certain Wo-Chen sets. For deciding that no, like I don't want, like if you want to get to the point where you're facing the Justin Tang, Shiliang Tang, Luca Paz, Carson Confer type players who are using that team, Andrew Ding of course, you need to get through everyone else first. And so nerfing the rest of our team in order to beat the team that we expected a lot of top players to be using didn't seem like a good idea. And instead making small adjustments to make the matchup a little more playable was better. But if you look at our team, we really relied on Iron Hands to be able to threaten Ursaluna, and then they can just Terra Ghost the Ursaluna. But Miraidon doesn't really threaten it, Hooh doesn't really threaten it, Ferrig and Grimmsnarl don't really threaten it, and so we have to beat it with Iron Hands, or in our case, we said, well, we can just use our own Ursaluna, and we can play the, and we can just call them, and you know, they have screens, we have Ursa, they have Ursa. In theory, the matchup maybe is playable, but in reality, their Lunala is also very difficult for our team to power through, is throwing a lot of really strong neutral damage into our team, and our Miraidon is not throwing as much neutral damage into their team. So that was the other team we were really struggling with, and a lot of our concessions, or a lot of our decisions were focused on beating that team and beating CSR Pagos and beating the CSR Zamazenta Raging Bolt teams. Everything else was fine. Everything else felt really, really good. And as you can see in my tournament run, I did not face a single CSR Zamazenta, much less one with Raging Bolt. In fact, I'm looking at it, I faced one Raging Bolt the entire tournament, and it was round 1, which is kind of crazy. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, I guess I had some pretty good pairings, all things considered. At least in the early part of the tournament, these were a lot of the teams that I wanted to face. So yeah, those were like the sort of pressure points for the team and the things that we were considering when we were building. The Grimmsnarl. I guess I could talk about the individual Pokemon now, and I'm going to go first to last. So the Farigiraf set, Farigiraf, kind of fake EV spreads. You have to make a decision about what you actually want to do with it, but there's a lot of different Thank you for the follow. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. But they kind of don't matter, right? Just a bulky Pokemon. I didn't have any specific things in mind with my EV spread. Rajan put this EV spread together, and I didn't question it because the EV spread for Furgraph is kind of fake. But yeah, the decisions for the moves, legitimately the only decision for its move, the only two decisions you make for Furgraph are the Terra type, which could have been Terra Water or Terra Dark or Terra Fire. And I chose Terra Water because I think it would be the most helpful into Kyogre teams. I didn't ever Terra it in the entire tournament, so it didn't matter. And then Psychic Noise or Psychic, or even Roar. We considered Roar, so you could click Draco Meteor and Roar, or you could Roar out Zamazenta, and you can Roar out Terrapagos. When I tested it against Terrapagos, I never actually got to Roar it out. That just never came up. In fact, I didn't want to bring it in the matchup. And when I tested it, and so it was just Psychic or Psychic Noise, and Psychic Noise, in theory, was better into Pagos than Roar, just to keep it from healing into Terra Shell range, so you could guarantee to fire off one strong attack into it. But in reality, that never came up either. So it could have been Psychic as well. The Furrygraph was probably my least brought Pokemon overall. So yeah, that's Mon 1. Iron Hands was the other Mon that is, the four moves were kind of decided. You could drop Wild Charge for, or one of the fighting moves for Heavy Slam. That's certainly a possibility. The Terra type, we didn't, right? It's nice to have Wild Charge when you have Miraidon is kind of the decision we made. I didn't regret it at all. It was fine. The Terra type was because if you look at the rest of the team, there isn't a Pokemon that wants to Terra into CSR Zamazenta, really. And that's important, is knowing what you're going to Terra in individual matchups. And so into CSR Zamazenta, when I was testing the matchup felt okay, except for the fact that I did not have a Pokemon that I wanted to use my Terastallization on. And so I made the Iron Hands Terra bug because it is the type that lets you take a body press from Zamazenta without being weak to any of Calyrex Shadow Rider's attacks. That's the reason why. It also is conveniently resisting ground, and that's pretty cool too. The EV spread was a sort of a last minute change. We decided to make it so, one, we have the fastest Iron Hands. It was 92 speed stat, which is cool. With screens up, you don't need as much bulk because you have screens and you can take all the attacks anyways. We also gave it, the speed because that way in Tailwind, you can outspeed Zamazenta. And the way the matchup against CSR Zamazenta plays, you will often set up Trick Room in the early game, and then stick your Ho-Oh on field, start throwing out Sacred Fires that they can't really deal with. They'll try to stall out Trick Room, and the last turn of Trick Room, you just click Tailwind, and all of a sudden your Iron Hands and Ho-Oh are now the fastest things on the field. You're threatening the Calyrex Shadow Rider with your Ho-Oh. You're threatening the Zamazenta with your Iron Hands, with your big low kicks, and you're actually moving first with your Iron Hands and threatening to KO, or threatening to do like a lot of damage to it, as well as threatening to burn it with your Ho-Oh. So that was the reason for the speed investment. The last reason was because outspeeding all of the Incineroar was really cool. A lot of Incineroar were running Will-O-Wisp. And so if I outspeed them and I can hit them with a big Drain Punch before they can Will-O-Wisp me, that's really good. If I can fake out them before they can fake me out, and then I get a big attack off with my Miraidon, that's also really good. And so those are like the reasons that I wanted to put speed investment on my Iron Hands. And yeah, that was basically it. Those were the decisions going into the Iron Hands EV spread, basically. The Ho-Oh is the next one. This, I don't know what this EV spread does. This was the EV spread that Alex used on his version of the team that he used on stream. And I did not, he passed me this pace. I did not question it. So this was the Ho-Oh spread. It never changed. The Terra type never changed. The only decision for Ho-Oh was, do I want to run Leftovers or do I want to run Clear Amulet? Clear Amulet, of course, is really good into Incineroar, and it's good into Icy Wind as well, and it'll good into Electrowebs as well. But the Leftovers is really good all the time. It's really good all the time. Like every single matchup, you will get value out of Leftovers. And that's the reason why it's there. It just makes it, in an early format, you don't know what you're going to face. You want to have the best overall team into a broad field of players. You can't sit there and try to counter team individual players as much. And that's why we wanted to make the Ho-Oh as good as possible overall. The Leftovers does a couple different things. The first thing is that Brave Bird is actually just significantly stronger than Sacred Fire. It has really good type coverage into the format in flying. There's not a lot of flying types in the format. A lot of grass types will show up in your matchup because you have Iron Hands, Miraidon, Ursaluna. And so being able to hit those guys really hard and like threaten a KO on Urshifu and Rillaboom is really good. And so you kind of you kind of need to click Brave Bird a lot. Also, to lock up game states where you don't want to miss your Sacred Fires, you need to click Brave Bird some amount of the time. And so it's important to have a way to heal off that damage. Of course, Regenerated heals off that damage, but so does Leftovers. The other reason is because this team doesn't really have a great way to punish Protect. People will Protect on your fake outs. They will Protect on your to stall out screens, Protect to stall out your speed control, Protect to let your Ursaluna take chip damage, Protect to see what your Miraidon's attacks locks into. So having a way to like sort of punish Protect by getting some healing with your Ho-Oh is also pretty cool. Especially since a lot of endgames against the CSR's and Magenta team come down to, okay, well, we click Trick Room, they've stalled that Trick Room, we've taken a KO or two, now we click Tailwind, and then we have 3 turns of Tailwind to exploit, and they are protecting, attacking, protecting to stall it out. Now all of a sudden, you can consistently win that endgame because your Ho-Oh has recovered so much more health in that endgame. Similarly, against Sun teams, a lot of times what you're playing towards is trading knockouts, and then your Ho-Oh has to 1v1 a Koraidon, and Koraidon still chunks Ho-Oh. I mean, Koraidon hits hard, and Ho-Oh does not have the highest defense stat. You see, we've invested very heavily in defense, and it's still taking a lot of damage from Terra, Fire, Flare Blitz, and Sun, and so being able to protect, stall out some Sun turns, get some Leftovers healing, slowly get back, just get out of range from the Terra, Fire, Flare Blitz, get out of range for a Life Orb close combat or whatever they want to click, is really important in that matchup because you are trying to endgame these you're trying to endgame Pokemon. You're trying to endgame Zamazentas. A lot of times you will get to, I Terra Grass my Ho-Oh, and now I got a 1v1 a Zamazenta, and I got to throw Sacred Fires off into it, hopefully get a burn, and take a couple hits from this body press that's neutral, and Leftovers helps you win those endgames as well. Just like a lot of endgames, you keep, when you play this team, you will find out that a lot of your games come down to trading knockouts and sitting your Ho-Oh on field 1v1 and saying, Ho-Oh is going to win this 1v1 against my opponent. And when you're in that situation, having the little extra healing every turn is really valuable. So that's why we have Leftovers on Ho-Oh. It does make the team worse into Incineroar. A lot of the Pokemon on the team are good into Incineroar, so it's okay that Ho-Oh is bad into Incineroar. And also, if you watch my stream set, sometimes you just get to click the attacks into Incineroar anyways and say, what are you going to do about it? That being said, Andrew did leverage Incineroar a lot better against me when he beat me in Top Cut, and he didn't bring Incineroar against me in Swiss. So that was consequential, right? He did. That was an important part of the matchup. The next Pokemon on this list, that again, the part of the core 4, Iron Hands, Ho-Oh, Miraidon, Farigiraf, the last of that core 4 is Miraidon. And the other reason that I really wanted to run this team and not run the Iron Bundle Ogerpon version was because I hate speed ties, and I did not want to have this tournament come down to playing a bunch of Miraidon, Koraidon, Fluttermane, Shenpao speed ties. And when I was testing the team, I realized that actually, you know what? The Miraidon speed ties don't come up that often. Koraidon speed ties don't come up. The Koraidon speed ties came up a decent amount, but you can kind of play around that a little bit with Ho-Oh and with screens, right? Like, those guys are really good into the Koraidon teams, so it wasn't a huge deal that Miraidon was speed tying them because you could find another way to beat them. If you have Iron Bundle, you can just kind of click Icy Wind and Electro Drift into a slot and win that way. But I thought that Ho-Oh was supposed to be good into that team, so I didn't need to have another Mon that was good into that team, really. I mean, you need other Mons that are good into that team, but you don't need to have, like, Iron Bundle try to aggro through that team. And so that was why I said the only thing that really matters with Miraidon, the speed ties, is that Shenpao. The Shenpao Miraidon speed ties came up a lot, and that was the one thing that I was really scared of by cutting my Miraidon speed stat. But Rajan said, when he said, I want to run grimmsnarl, he said, I want to run bold Miraidon. Like, straight up bold Miraidon. And I said, that's stupid. You're not doing any damage. This team relies on Miraidon to do damage. I need to go modest. But I do agree that I would like to run bulky Miraidon with grimmsnarl to not have to deal with speed ties and to tank hits better and really abuse screens more effectively and play a longer, slower, grindier game with this team that really plays to Ho-Oh's strengths, where you want to be able to pivot it in, pivot it out, pivot it in, pivot it out. And Miraidon is so good at pivoting. Let's make it live for a long time. And so I built this EV spread. And this EV spread does a few cool things. So it outspeeds Timid Kyogre, and then there's one additional point to speed creep. You might notice, if you looked at the team that Andrew Ding used to win the regional, he posted his paste Shiliang posted his pace. Shiliang built the team originally. He has the same speed stat on his Miraidon, and I played him twice. So I found out the hard way that we actually, despite trying to opt out of speed ties, our Miraidon speed ties. And in the 6 games that we played across our 2 sets, 2 of them did come down to Miraidon speed ties, which is very funny that this is exactly what I was trying to avoid. And instead, we end up getting the Miraidon speed ties to determine who progresses into top 8 of the tournament. So that was fun. That was a funny revelation that we had in game 1 of our first set. We found, and he had already won that set, and then we find out that Miraidon speed, because it 1v1 versus Miraidons. And I'd won the first speed tie, but I was locked into Dazzling Gleam, and he had Terra Electric, and so and then he moves first the next time. And I was like, wait a second, what? Like, that's crazy. Again, the entire premise of the team was to avoid Miraidon speed ties, and here we are speed tying with the eventual regional champion. So, what can I say? Great minds think alike. But yeah, so 20 speed outspeeds Kyogre, and then I think 2 points of speed creep. So outspeeds people that want to outspeed Kyogre by a point as well. I think some Zamazenta, for example, are hitting the 157 point, and we want to hit 158. If you haven't seen my dynamic speed tiers, I do aggregate all these speed tiers across all Pokemon, and my channel members can see the dynamic speed tiers. Let me pull up let me pull up. Hold up. We're doing this on the fly. I'm not editing this too much. I'm pulling up my Reg G speed tiers here. So this is kind of what I create every time. This is all from the Smogon.com stats aggregated from Pokemon Showdown. But you can see here that you can kind of see where the big points where a lot of people use the same speed stat are. And that lets you speed creep a little more effectively. This is for Regulation G. The Regulation I ones from the first April ladder results are available to my channel members exclusively. So if you are interested in this, you can subscribe. I make this for me. I make this because I find this is useful for me, and then I make it available to channel members as well. And so yeah, that's something that's available to you. In my case, found out that 157 was a very common speed stat because 156 was max speed Kyogre. And a lot of people want to just outspeed 157, and so we hit 158 as a result of that. And that was the reason. I think that there were some Miraidon back in Reg G, as you can see here, that hit that 158 speed stat at the time. So that, I guess, isn't the most uncommon speed stat for Miraidon. Just a little bit of speed creep to get that. That's the speed stat that we hit. That's 20 speed. The special attack is just, I wanted to keep it modest, and I wanted to keep it similar to max speed Timid because I was comfortable with those calcs. This is only 6% less damage than max speed Timid max special attack Miraidon. But the bulk is cool because the bulk, if I Terra Fairy, allows me without Light Screen to live a Timid max speed Electro Drift from opposing Miraidon, which is cool because it means I can opt out of the speed tie and Terra very comfortably and not have to worry about dying to an Electro Drift. It also lets you usually live 2 Astral Barrages from Life Orb, Caloric, Shadow Rider, which is another pretty cool calc that you get. And on the physical side, the calcs are, I think, Glacial Lance related. There was one other physical calc. I think there were some Koraidon calcs that you get on the physical side. But in hindsight, I would have dumped a little more into Phys Def and a little less into Special Defense. And the reason for that is because it turns out that a lot of the top players were running Scarf Miraidon, like the team that got second place at this tournament with Dylan. Dylan, of course, ran Choice Scarf Miraidon here, so the Timid Choice Specs Miraidon calc didn't matter. And then, of course, we saw a lot of people running the Assault Vest Miraidon, and so the Timid Choice Specs calc didn't really matter there either. And of course, I didn't really face Caloric Shadow Zamazenta or any Life Orb. I think I faced a couple of Life Orb Caloric Shadow, but I didn't really face the teams that I expected to face. And I think that into Ice Rider, into maybe Zacian, if you put some screens up, I don't think I faced Zacian. I don't know. Into Ice Rider's the big one, and then also into opposing Ursaluna. My game 3 into Andrew Ding came in our Swiss match came down to whether or not my Miraidon, the Terra Fairied, would survive a Facade from from this Ursaluna and KO back with Draco Meteor in Trick Room. That was the game deciding turn in game 3, and I lived on 3 HP. It turns out that it is a 60% chance to knock out and a 40% chance to live. And that was just because I have absurd amounts of bulk. He was very surprised to see me survive the attack. And that knowing that information definitely helped him in Top Cut as well, right? Having played me before, knowing roughly what my bulk was. But yeah, we both kind of knew that was a role. Afterwards, he was like, "There's no way you're bulky enough to always survive that." But in hindsight, I could have definitely taken something out of Spadef and put it in defense and been maybe able to survive that type of attack more consistently, and that might have helped into Ice Rider and helped into opposing Ursaluna as well. So that's something to consider. Maybe going forward is that maybe you can jiggle these defenses around, but the very, very bulky Miraidon was really cool. I actually really liked this set. I was very, very happy with how the bulk turned out, and it surprised a lot of people over the course of the tournament that I was taking attacks that I kind of had no business tanking, especially with screens up. It was really good. I was taking, I played like a Combine Pagos, and I was just like switching Miraidon in and out, switching Ho-Oh in and out, putting screens in and out, parting shotting it over and over again, and it was just doing like 20%. Plus ones, doesn't matter, 20%, who cares? It never made any progress. It's great. The bulk on Miraidon was really cool. And again, it's cool to see that this is a conclusion that I kind of came to, but also other people had come to the fact that bulky Miraidon was really good too. Just that they had Assault Vest and I had Choice Specs. And we ended up, right, having pretty comparable ideas in that they have a lot of they didn't have much special defense investment. I had a lot of special defense investment, but they have an Assault Vest. They had a lot more special attack investment, but I had the Choice Specs. So it kind of evens out. But yeah, it was cool to see that they kind of came to the same idea as I did independently. Yeah, so that was the Miraidon. The other next two Pokemon was Grimmsnarl. EV spreads doesn't really matter. You're careful so that you can live a Fluttermane Moonblast. That's the only really calc that really matters for this guy. You Terra Ghost so that you can avoid fake outs. My game 1 against Andrew in Top Cut came down to he had a fake out live and I need to get 2 attacks off, and I had Ursaluna and Grimmsnarl on the field, and it kind of just came down to, can I call the slot that he's faking out and Terra Ghost it? And I called it wrong. And if I'd called it right, I think I win the game 1. And I won game 2. So and he outplayed the crap out of me in game 3. So kudos to him, right? But that was kind of what game 1 came down to, and game 2 I won the Miraidon speed tie and won the set. So won game 2. So that was our first 2 games, right? Funnily enough, I was like, oh man, there's a lot of Grimmsnarl on ladder. I should run 4 speed investment so I can get the jump on opposing Grimmsnarl and Spirit Break them. And Andrew was also 4 speed investment on his Grimmsnarl. So one of our games, I think our game 2 or our game 1 in Swiss came down to a very important turn in that game was a Grimmsnarl speed tie where one of us would knock out the opposing Grimmsnarl first, and then we wouldn't be able to get screens up. So that was also like a funny revelation, was that not only did our Miraidon speed tie, but also our Grimmsnarl speed tie. And so yeah, the moves, Spirit Break is good because it lowers special attack, and there's a lot of Pokemon that want to be a Dark type. Like Calyrex Shadow can Terra Dark to you to avoid getting parting shotted. Lunalas, it's really nice to drop their special attack stat. Opposing Grimmsnarl, Iron Hands, Miraidon. There's a lot of things you want to Spirit Break in this format. Whereas Foul Play is sometimes solid, but we had a Farigiraf with Foul Play, so I didn't really feel like I needed it. And I have Iron Hands to hit Dark type. So actually that's a reason not to run Spirit Break, huh? Well, anyways, yeah, I had a Farigiraf with Foul Play, and Spirit Break came up a lot. So very happy with that. Again, especially into opposing Grimmsnarl when the format is chock full of them. But Parting Shot is the one move that everyone was very surprised by. And I'll pull up Marco's tweet here, where he said, good luck to everyone who isn't playing Grimmsnarl at Milwaukee Regionals. And of course, this was, I was on stream and someone said, what about Grimmsnarl players without T-Wave? He said, I don't know if you know Ball. Of course, I was building with Rajan. Rajan didn't really feel like playing this regional. He dropped at 2-2 to go play poker, and lost a lot of money on poker too. So I said, I don't think you know Ball, because Rajan locked in this team. He said the team sucks. I went 10-1, so I don't know if I agree. And I'll say that because Parting Shot is the reason to run Miraidon to run Grimmsnarl Ho-Oh. If you're not running Parting Shot, you should be running the team that Luca or the team that Andrew used, because if you're the point of the reason that you want to run Ho-Oh is because you want to be able to pivot very effectively. And what the interaction that we found that in testing that was so strong was you can switch out your Ho-Oh and then Parting Shot back into your Ho-Oh, and most of the things that they want to hit your Grimmsnarl with, Ho-Oh resists. And Ho-Oh wants to tank all these weak attacks, these not very effective attacks, and get its healing with leftovers, get its healing with regenerator. And if you can ever get to a state where you switch out your Ho-Oh into like an Iron Hands or a Miraidon to tank an attack, like take an electric type attack, and then Parting Shot back out, give them a special attack drop or an attack drop, switch your Ho-Oh in and take another weak attack, and then you get to preserve your grimmsnarl. So later in the game, you can switch it back in. It's got decent bulk. It's got good defensive typing. And you get a chance to set up a screen maybe later in the game because you are playing long games. 8 turns goes by quickly with this team. They can stall them out pretty effectively. Sometimes you want to not set up a screen on turn 1, and you want to set up a screen on turn 7 instead. And you get the chance to do that with Parting Shot much more effectively. And so I do think that was really important. The other thing is that a lot of teams in this format are very resilient to T-Wave. They don't have a lot of things you can T-Wave. And again, I will point to Andrew Ding's team, where he has an Incineroar that you can't T-Wave, and a Grimmsnarl that you can't T-Wave, and a Miraidon that you can't T-Wave, and an Ursaluna that you can't T-Wave. And he's bringing these guys, and Lunala doesn't really care about T-Wave either, because it's not a Pokemon that cares about moving first. And so, usually setting up Trick Room, honestly, right? So what is T-Wave doing against this team? It's doing nothing. But I want to bring the Grimmsnarl against this team. So then again, I was scared of this team. I knew this team was going to be big going into the tournament. And Parting Shot makes Grimmsnarl so much more active against the team because now I can set up a Reflect and I can Parting Shot the Ursaluna. I can set up a Light Screen and Parting Shot them a Miraidon, right? And all of a sudden now I can play this pivoting game into the best team in the format, which we knew going into the tournament was the best team built so far in the format, probably, or at least one of the teams that would be represented at high tables. And that was very important in the matchup. So that was the reason for Parting Shot. It also was really good into Calyrex Shadow Terapagos. My round 2, I played Waleed, and the games were not close. He did really well this tournament, right? He made day 2 with Koraidon Terapagos. In round 1, Rajan said he beat a Terapagos, Combine Terapagos player as well. But Parting Shot is so good into that because you can do that thing that I just said. You can set up Light Screen and then click Spirit Break, and if you're ever threatened, you just click Parting Shot. You don't really want to Terra into Terapagos normally, right? Because you makes your Pokemon weaker to it, but you can Terra Ghost your Grimmsnarl, and that would force it to Terra earlier in the game if it wants to hit your Grimmsnarl for any damage, which is good because that means that when you actually need Electric Terrain, you keep Electric Terrain up, and you can avoid your Fake Outs, and you just click Parting Shot. And you just click Parting Shot over and over again, and it never gets any boosts, and if they're clicking Combine, they're not attacking with it. And so they never make any progress, and the rest of their team is quite weak. And so you get to chip away at the rest of their team with your Volt Switch and your Sacred Fires and your Drain Punches, and the Terapagos never gets going. And that's not something that you could very effectively do if you don't have Parting Shot on your Grimmsnarl. And this single-handedly turned a matchup that was negative into a matchup that was positive for us. And so, that was the reasons for Parting Shot. I really, if there's one thing to take away from the Grimmsnarl, Ho-Oh, Miraidon core, what does the team do better than the team that Andrew Ding used, I guess is the question, right? Because he is also on screens, Miraidon, Trick Room, and quite frankly, Lunala is a better Trick Room setter than Farigiraf. It uses the Electric Seed better than Farigiraf. A big problem with this team was that the Trick Room mode can just get blown up by sufficiently strong attackers, double targeting the Farigiraf. And that's not true about Lunala nearly as much because Lunala is just a bulkier Pokemon and has Shadow Shield. And so I do think that in terms of setting up screens and setting up Trick Room and powering through with Ursaluna, that team does it better. And so if you want to really leverage the strength of this team, the mode that I was bringing the most was actually Grimmsnarl, Miraidon, Ho-Oh, Ursaluna, and setting up screens and setting up Tailwind and setting up my Ursaluna. You can see I have speed investment on my Ursaluna, so I can outspeed some slower things in Tailwind. And they don't really want to click Trick Room into my Ursaluna. And I have enough bulk with screens and with Ho-Oh to tank attacks and play a positional game with my Ursaluna. Which is pretty cool. And so that's what I really, really would want to lean into is clicking Parting Shot with my Ho-Oh and maybe running a Sinistcha like we saw, let's see if I can find Dawei's team here. Dawei had a really cool team with Ho-Oh, also with leftovers, Sinistcha, Miraidon, Grimmsnarl, right? And obviously a very different looking Miraidon, and no Parting Shot. But I think that this is a cool proof of concept that maybe you run Sinistcha, Grimmsnarl, Ho-Oh, Miraidon, and Parting Shot with your Grimmsnarl and get your Sinistcha in or something like that. Or the Wochett was the other reason that I was if I run Parting Shot with Wochett, maybe I can play these really slow, stally games. It didn't work in the one, couple hours of testing that I had with it, but that's a concept that I would love to explore some more. So Parting Shot and Grimmsnarl, very, very good. T-Wave, Not very good in a format where everyone is running Terra Dark on their Caloric Shadow Rider, where they're running Miraidon and Ursaluna is everywhere, right? Like, you just don't actually get to T-Wave very many Pokemon in this format. Obviously, it's very annoying for the Pokemon that you do, but Parting Shot comes up far more often, far more consistently, and makes Grimmsnarl a very, very different Pokemon that allows it to like have a place in positional play, have a place in the late game plans. You can get a late Parting Shot off, you can get a late screen, you can get a second screen off or a late screen off. All these things came up for me. Very, very important. Last but not least is the Ursaluna. These are the 4 moves you run on Ursaluna. Earthquake with Hooh was actually really good. I didn't think it would be very good. I considered dropping it, and Roshan said, no, that's stupid, run Earthquake. And if you watch my stream set against Pengi, he knocked off my Flame Orb game 1, and I sat there with my non-burnt Ursaluna, that was intimidated next to my Hooh, and I just clicked Earthquake Earthquake Sacred Fire the entire game, and I won the game. It was such a silly set. So yeah, the synergy with Hooh was very cool. You need to play to your strengths with this team, and that was one of the strengths of this team. The EV spread is a little bit of speed investment. Again, I looked at my dynamic speed tiers that are available to my channel members, and I saw that a lot of people are running 75 speed Ice Rider, 75 speed Iron Hands, and I said, let me hit 76 speed, because then I can outspeed the Iron Hands, and that's pretty good for an Ursaluna to do, is outspeed all the Iron Hands. Not all the Iron Hands, obviously not my Iron Hands, but outspeeding some of the Iron Hands is pretty cool. Ursaluna was the call for this tournament. That's kind of the big takeaway, right? It's really good into from Andrew Ding's team. It was just really good into Caloric Shadow. It's really good into Miraidon. I faced a Miraidon Caloric Shadow again on stream with Pengi. You can beat the Raging Bolts with it. Just a lot, like, it's pretty good into Sun if you set up Trick Room. They don't really have great ways to deal with it. Farigiraf doesn't consistently set up Trick Room into Sun, but even without consistently setting up Trick Room into Sun, Ursaluna still like put in work into the Sun teams that I faced, or at least the some of the Sun teams that I faced. It was still quite good. So yeah, like just a really good Pokemon. Some people ran Terra Water for Ice Rider. I didn't think I needed it. I think Terra Ghost is more important in the mirror. Which is now more common than ever, because you can live a Headlong Rush, but you can't live a Facade as consistently after Flame Orb Tick. So having Terra Ghost as an option to avoid Fake Out and to avoid Facade is something that you really do want to have. Yeah, okay, so that's the team. Those are the 6 Pokemon. I'm happy I'm going to talk more about, all the stuff on Top Takes, so make sure to, subscribe and watch that. That'll be coming out real soon. The tournament itself, I'll give you my tournament experience here. So my flight was delayed. My flight was delayed 3 hours. I flew out on Friday night after work. So I was still putting the final touches on this team. I was pretty sure I was going to run these 6, but Rajan and I were still discussing about what the actual plan was. And I was like, okay, work's done. I get a bladder for a couple hours before my flight. My flight was supposed to be at 8 o'clock. And I tilted 200 points on ladder. I went from like 1,500 to 1,300 on ladder with this team. I tried the Wochen version, and it flopped even harder. I considered running Sun, and of course I immediately, that was my backup plan, right? And so immediately I queue into a Pelipper, and I'm like, fuck, I can't run Sun. There's going to be Pelipper this tournament. And I will say, I was a little vindicated, because I did run into one of the 2 Pelippers in day 2 in my win-in, right? So I did actually face the Ice Rider Pelipper team, so glad I didn't run Sun into that, because that would have made me super tilted. Yeah, so I lost a lot of points. I was having a big crisis of faith. I was kind of freaking out. Rajan was telling me about how he wants to run Annihilate to solve the Pagos matchup, and I told him it didn't solve the Pagos matchup, and he played one game with it and realized I was right. So yeah, just like a lot of very stressful day, and then on top of all of that, my flight got delayed. And there were so many flight delays. A lot of people I talked to said their flight got delayed. My good friend Justin Burns had his flight canceled. He couldn't make it to the regional. The Mr. Ice Rider God himself, I'm sure he would have top cut with Calyrex Ice. Instead, his flight got canceled from Huntsville or Atlanta area, where there were a lot of thunderstorms. My plane was coming in from Huntsville, and it got delayed 3 hours, which meant that instead of getting in at like a very reasonable 10 o'clock, I was actually on the same flight as Wolf, funnily enough. And I saw he posted on Instagram or something saying the same thing. Instead of getting in at like a reasonable hour, having some time to, put the very finishing touches on my team, submit my team list at a reasonable hour, and go to bed and get some sleep. I got to my hotel at 2 a.m. and I submitted my team sheet. at 2 a.m. And you know, like Rajan had my Pokemon, so I traded for with Rajan for like the last Pokemon that I needed for my team. I like 2 a.m., which sucked. It was awful. I had like no sleep before the tournament. It was super stressful. I was so convinced I was going to just do really poorly at this tournament as a result of my like tilted laddering, and because of all the like just all the stuff that was going on Friday. I get like very little sleep, and Saturday comes around, and yeah, I just start playing. I played a really difficult schedule. I played. Also, I just had a really crazy Saturday. I talked about this a little bit on stream when I played Stefan. But you know, I played. Waleed, very good player. Played him round 2. Kind of wiped the floor with him because of the parting shot on Grimmsnarl that he didn't have a response to. But he did really well, and it was nice to know that I can beat good Pagos players, because that was a matchup I was scared of going into the tournament. I played Andrew Figueroas, who was actually heavily inspired my Atlanta Regionals team with Loaded Dice Koraidon. He's a really nice guy. Also made day 2. He also, I think, went 8-3 at Atlanta Regionals. So I knew he was a good player. And he was running this Iron Jugulus Kyogre team that I can pull up, which was actually very scary because Kyogre Landorus could be very difficult. But thankfully, he had Never Melt Ice on his Calyrex, which meant that he could get parting shotted, which is cool. You would think, right? Well, game 1, I beat him like pretty cleanly. I just like Draco Meteor his Amoonguss turn 1, and it goes down, and I win the game from there. Game 2, I lead Miraidon Grimmsnarl, and he leads Amoonguss Calyrex Ice. And I don't Terra because I know that with Reflect Up I can live a Glacial Lance very comfortably. Or not very comfortably, but like with enough. I don't need to be at high health to do this. So I click Draco Meteor I click Reflect, and I click Draco into Amoonguss. And I miss the Draco Meteor, which sucks. And Glacial Lance connects and KOs both my Pokemon, which isn't supposed to happen, but he double crit the Glacial Lance. And he immediately wins game 2. Which, you know, if you're running screens, you will inevitably lose some games to critical hits. That is something that will happen. And so I took that loss, and I was not very happy with it, but, you know, it is what it is. Going to game 3. In game 3, we're playing this game, and I forget what he leads. He leads something different. I don't remember exactly how it goes down. But, I remember how it goes down. Because turn 1, I just Volt Switch off the Kyogre, and he lets me take the Kyogre. Like, he clicks Tailwind Water Spout, and he does a bunch of damage to me. But, like, he just gives me the Kyogre. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm in a great spot. Except a couple turns later, like, I click Reflect, and I have my Iron Hands and Grimmsnarl on the field, and he double crits another Glacial Lance. And he KOs my Grimmsnarl, and he puts my Iron Hands down to like 5 HP, to 8 HP. It was at 8 health points. When I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? I've got double crit with Glacial Lance twice this game. And he is also freaking out, because he actually wanted my Grimmsnarl to stick around that turn, because he wanted to be able to click Trick Room freely next turn. So he's like, man, that was actually, afterwards we were talking, and he was like, yeah, that was a really bad crit for me, except that like the Iron Hands crit was really good for him. And so it was funny how that worked out. And in the end game, he has a Iron Jugulus at low HP and Calyrex Ice that had just protected into my Miraidon and into my Iron Hands that is at 8 hit points. And he goes for, he just protected with Ice Rider, and he's at like 45%. He's pretty bulky with his Ice Rider, and he knows that I'm pretty bulky with my Miraidon. So, of course, I go for Draco Meteor into Ice Rider, and he goes for Double Protect. And he goes for a Snarl. And he misses the Double Protect. And his Snarl connects with my Miraidon, and Draco Meteor misses the Ice Rider. So I've missed a Draco that would have taken that in both games, and I've gotten double crit both games in this set. But because he went for Double Protect and not for Glacial Lance, the game is still alive. And I think that was a misplay on his part, because I did click Wild Charge into his Iron Jugulus, and I knocked it out. And of course, you know, I was at 8 hit points. He did 3 hit points with his Snarl behind Light Screen. So it was not KOing my Iron Hands. He was, you know, maybe speculatively thinking it was going to KO my Iron Hands. But yeah, so I lived that attack. He said, you know, I think I was more likely to get a Double Protect and get 2 Snarls off than I was to dodge a Draco. But I was never letting him get the second Snarl off. So you know, that's how that played out. And then I hit the second Draco, and afterwards we talk about it and we run the calc, and it turns out that because of his special bulk and because of my lack of special attack investment, it's actually like a roll to KO. like I think it's like a 60% chance to KO or something like that. After one snarl. So which on one hand, like I got pretty lucky there, but on the other hand, like he also just hard tossed by not clicking Glacial Lance. So there's that, right? I kind of got rewarded for him misplaying, despite I think getting pretty unlucky overall in the set. And again, when you're running screens, you're gonna get crit, and your crits are going to be more impactful. And so it's nice that I managed to win the game despite that. Again, getting a little lucky overall. Oh, he's very bulky on his Urshifu. He's like near max HP on his Urshifu. And it turns out that means that my Brave Bird from Hoa was a roll to KO his Urshifu as well. And I got that roll, and I just kind of assumed it would KO. So that was also something that happened. So you could say it evened out, but I did like immediately lose game 2 on a crit. Double crit. So like, I think it evened out at the very least. Like I got a couple of rolls. And also he misplayed is really what it came down to. Round 4 I played Junchi. And I have my he's playing Miraidon CSR, and I have an Ursaluna, and I forget how the set goes exactly, but I do remember beating him in a close game 3 close game 3. So that was a good set. And then I played Noah in round 5, and this is the other absurd crazy set that I had that I talked about on stream. Noah is on the CSR Koraidon team, and game 1 he brings the Dozo mode. Now the Weezing is actually very annoying for my team because it does actually like invalidate the grimmsnarl and is really good into Miraidon because I don't do enough damage, and it turns off Regenerator, which is also really bad for me because I need the healing after taking an attack. And so game 1 he goes Dozo mode, and it comes down to a call on whether or not it comes down to a call whether or not he protects the Tatsugiri or not on one turn at the very end of the game, because I am dying to my toxic damage, and he has Tatsugiri Weezing on the field, and I just got to take 2 KOs, and he calls the protect turn slot right, and he wins with the 1 HP Tatsugiri that lives a Spirit Break from grimmsnarl and clicks counter back to KO it, which is pretty funny. And I had toxic, so I couldn't have not clicked that, right? Even though he doesn't have a way to hit my grimmsnarl, he was always winning that game. So that was that. Then game 2, he leads Koraidon Caloric Shadow Rider, and I think I lead Ho-Oh Miraidon, and I'm sitting there and like, this is really bad. Like I kind of have to call whether or not he collision courses or flare blitzes, and I think that maybe I can live the Astral Barrage and Terra Fire Flare Blitz if I don't Terra, because I have a lot of bulk. In hindsight, I probably don't live that, but I do end up tearing my Miraidon, and I get knocked out immediately with the Astral Flare Blitz combination. And I'm sitting there like, well, I'm probably screwed, right? Like I just lost my Restricted and my Terra for basically free. I get some damage off with my Ho-Oh, or I get like a Tailwind or something off with my Ho-Oh. That's not very impactful. He has all of his Pokemon left, and somehow I claw back. And the end of the game, he has an Indeedee Koraidon Caloric Shadow, and I think he messes up multiple times where he does not I KO his Weezing, and he brings in the Indeedee instead of bringing in the Caloric Shadow. He was supposed to bring in the Caloric Shadow, sack the Koraidon, put the Indeedee next to the Caloric Shadow, and just click Astral Barrage, follow me until the cows come home, and he didn't do that. So I think he actually played that. He was really supposed to win that game too, and he just kind of chose not to. In Tub we call that teamwork. And so he kind of tossed that game too. And then game 3 comes around, and I saw how much the Electro drifted to Weezing outside of terrain. It does 70 to Weezing outside of terrain. And so I knew I needed to get some chip onto it before the end game. So I click Sacred Fire into it, and I miss. I'm like, all right, first Sacred Fire miss of the tournament, no big deal, 95% accurate. Next turn I click Sacred Fire into it again, and I miss again. I miss 2 straight Sacred Fires into this Weezing. And it's really bad. It's very, very impactful. And so we're playing out this game, and it of course comes down to my 50% health poisoned Miraidon into his 100% health Weezing. And he protects to give me Toxic Chip, and I Electro Drift, and I do 70, and he Strange Teams, and he misses the Strange Team. So he misses his 95% accurate move too. And then he gets a double protect. He needs to triple protect to win. He doesn't get it. And I win the game off that. So I missed 2 95% accurate moves, and it evened out because he missed his own 95% accurate move. And that's how I win this set against Noah. He also misplayed really heavily in game 2 to put me in that position in the first place. And I'm sitting next to Pengi on this round, and he is freaking out at one point because he dodged a meteor beam to win the game, and he tells me that before we play in our round 6 stream match. You can watch that set on stream. Ursaluna just put in work. I 2-0'd him pretty comfortably. I think I played game 2 a little sloppy. After I thought I had kind of won the game, and I didn't realize how much play he had left. And he gave himself a chance, but he needed to like crit a Dazzling Gleam in the end game. It also helps that I crit his Iron Hands in the end game to make it a little more comfortable. But I think I was in a good spot anyways. But anyways, you can watch that game on stream. I think that he had very little matchup into Ursaluna is really what it came down to. I played Carl, great guy. Both game 1 and game 2 come down to the end game I was talking about, where Hooh has to 1v1 a Pokemon. It was either the Fluttermane or the Koraidon. And game 1, the Koraidon keeps on up just enough turns, and the Terrafire Flare Blitz does. I was at like his 60% health, and the Terrafire Flare Blitz KOs. It does about 70, I think, or 65, 70. So he gets there. Maybe I needed to double protect. I didn't know my calcs nearly well enough to confidently go for a double protect in that situation. I should have. Game 2, I 1v1 him, the Fluttermane with Hooh, which is great. And then game 3, I say, okay, I'm going to go for Rig and Ursa, and maybe he switches it up. Maybe he gives me a chance to get Trick Room up. And he doesn't switch it up, and he misses a Meteor Beam into my Farigiraf, and I get Trick Room up, and I Volt Switch off the Lunala, and I get my Ursaluna in, and the game's over, right? Like, he can't come back from Ursaluna with 5 turns of Trick Room, and Lunala's Shadow Shield is broken. And so I'm just in a really, really commanding position, and I just click my buttons and I win the game. And I think that, it was probably a game if he connects the Meteor Beam. Like, I'm not in the worst spot in the world. I still have some plays, but I certainly was in a very, very commanding position as a result of him missing the Meteor Beam. And so that was that. He also made it to top 16 of this tournament, so he had a really good run as well. Round 8, I play Luca. This is the matchup I'm trying to avoid all tournament, and he wipes the floor with me. It's not close. It's just not close. It's just not close. And so I'm just like, okay, I knew that was a bad matchup. He did really well. He of course went undefeated until top 4. And I'm feeling pretty good going 7-1 into day 2 when I thought I might not even be able to show up to the tournament. In day 2, I play Andrew Ding, and again I've talked about this both of our sets really a lot, but it's really funny to find out our Miraidon speed tie. It's really funny to find out game 2 that our grimmsnarl speed tie. And then it's also really funny to see that I live a Facade because I was not sure what that calc looked like. And turns out it was a 40% chance to live, and I get it, and I win. And so I beat the eventual regional champion, one of his 2 losses. I don't know who else he lost to. It was one of his 2 losses over the course of the weekend. Kalen Brown. Kalen, actually, funnily enough, he's another player who used to live in Texas and now lives in the DC area. So we both made the same move in the last year. With this is almost the exact team that my backup plan, the team that I was going to bring. And he said that, and I got the idea from a Limitless tour that Yotam had used this team in. And he was like, yeah, I gave the team to Yotam. He used it in the Limitless tour. Now he said he had to play the mirror at the tournament because people took it from that Limitless tour. Very strong team. Also, like one of the best versions of the Sun team, I think, my opinion. But yeah, so I beat Ding. I talked about that set. Jeremy Parsons, who was on my NPA Puppies team with me. We had a great chat, and then it took a long time because a judge took a switch. And, he got team sheet checked, and he lost his Urshifu before our match, and I got a game 1 win as a result, which is really unfortunate. It would have been fun to play a game 3 because he beat me game 1, and then I beat him game 2, and I kind of balled out on him game 2 because I Terra bugged my Iron Hands to tank I think a attack from his Iron Hands and maybe a Farigiraf attack double up, and then he brings his Miraidon in. And it's Miraidon Farigiraf into my Iron Hands Farigiraf with my Ursaluna in back. And he doesn't know I have Ursaluna because I didn't bring it in the first time we played. And I switch Ursaluna into Iron Hands, and I click Trick Room. And he clicks Helping Hand Electro Drift, try to KO the Iron Hands, and he calls the slot wrong, right? He needed to hit the Farigiraf. He said he almost hit the Farigiraf. He didn't hit the Farigiraf. He definitely thought about it. But I called the slot right. And then I get to Headlong Rush the Miraidon and click Trick Room again so that his Iron Hands in back would not outspeed my Ursaluna on the next turn, and so I got to click Trick Room and then click Trick Room immediately afterwards, and I win the game on that play. Again, it would have been fun to play game 3 against him. It sucked that he lost his Urshifu because I think that he said he might have brought Urshifu as a mix-up option in game 3. But it is what it is. He sadly needed the Urshifu to make top cut. He said in his win in round the next round as well. So very unfortunate because he was having a really, really strong tournament. Also, the only Miraidon Ice Rider I played. There was so much Miraidon Ice Rider this tournament. And this, like, I was sitting there thinking, like, man, I am not bringing my Iron Hands a lot. Like, really, like, not as much as I thought I would. I thought Iron Hands was really good, partially because I thought Miraidon Ice Rider was really good. And, like, CSR Pagos was really good. And I didn't face any of them. And so this is the one time that I really got to leverage the Iron Hands to its full effectiveness, other than the Terapagos set I talked about earlier. Last round I played Joe. I think that I would get a bye even if I lose to Joe. Joe got a bye even though he lost to me as one of the 3 X2s that would get a bye into top 16. I think I actually, in hindsight, looking at the standings, I think I might have missed the bye by 1 slot if I had lost against Joe. Joe is my arch nemesis. I've played him. I've lost a win-in to him the last 4 calendar years. In Players Cup 3, I lost a win-in against him. In Salt Lake City 2022, I lost a win-in against him in the very last round of Swiss. In 2023 San Antonio, I lost a win-in the very last round of Swiss against him. And then 2024 Portland, I lost the win-in for day 2 against him in the very last round of day 1. And so I keep losing to Joe. And I was just like, I'm always convinced I'm going to play him if we're ever on the bubble, if we're ever playing to top cut a tournament. And so here we are, thankfully in a much lower stakes game where we're both guaranteed to make top cut. And in this case, we were almost guaranteed to make it into the top 16. And I beat him. And I beat him, like, game 1, I beat him pretty comfortably. And game 2, he misses a Draco Meteor that he needed to hit that allows me to, of course, KO the Miraidon. If he hit the Draco Meteor, then it would have come down to most likely whether or not I get a Sacred Fire burn on his Iron Hands. Because he was going to Wild Charge my Ho-Oh. Instead, I get to, my Iron Hand survives because he misses the Draco Meteor. I get to low kick Sacred Fire the Iron Hands, and I win the game because of that. But yeah, I think it would have come down to whether or not I got a burn in the end game as a result. And of course, so that was that. It would have been interesting to see a rematch. In fact, if I had beaten Andrew and he had beaten Darsh, we would have played in a rematch. Instead, Andrew played Darsh in top 8. And I've talked about my set against Andrew again, but I'll quickly recap. Game 1, it comes down to whether or not I call the fake out slot because I need to get 2 attacks off on a turn, and I Terra my Ursaluna, and I should have Terra'd my Grimmsnarl because he fakes out my Grimmsnarl. And he wins game 1. Game 2, it comes down to whether or not my Miraidon moves before his Miraidon and fires a Draco Meteor off into his Ursaluna, and I win the speed tie and I win the game. And then game 3, he outplays the shit out of me and he wins. I got my turn 1 very wrong because I led my Ursaluna just to get damage off onto his board, and he leads his Incineroar, and I'm like, you know what? Game 1 this happened, and I didn't click protect on my Ursaluna, and he had a chance to knock off my Ursaluna, and if he does that, I lose. So maybe he does that game too. He gets to go for a knockoff immediately, and try to call my play out, and I protect, and that was just the very wrong play because I lose so much momentum because he didn't knock off. He just fakes out my Miraidon. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, like if I had clicked Earthquake, switched to Ho-Oh turn 1, and tank the fake out Moonblast, I'm in such a good position. But instead, I call that turn very wrong. That's on me. I should have stuck to what was, I think, the game plan that I thought out. Of course, I didn't expect him to lead Incineroar because he didn't lead Incineroar in our first match, but I still should have just committed to that play, and I didn't, and I lost as a result. So, or I was put very behind, and he never gives up the lead because he's a very good player, and he has a favorable team matchup into me. And yeah, once he takes the lead, it's very hard for him to relinquish it. So those are my sets. I finished top 16 despite being the number 2 overall seed after Swiss. I'll do my little rant now. I'm going to do this on Tub Takes as well, so maybe you've heard this one already. It's very stupid that I really hate the big top cuts because this is not the first time that I've gone X1 in Swiss, and then in top 16 I've played the eventual winner of the tournament and lost and finished top 16 when I think I'm one of the 8 best players in this tournament. And I really want, you can see my playmats back there, the top 8 playmats that you get for getting a top 8. You get a medal for top 4. I only lost the first and third this tournament. I think I was one of the 8 best players in this tournament. And I got a chance, but like I lost to the eventual winner, right? And in a tough matchup, in a rematch that I'd beaten him already, clearly I know I can beat him if the game plays out the right way. And so yeah, it's just like and this is where the old system where we had 14 rounds of Swiss and it cuts top 8. Yes, it comes down to resistance, but it also does such a much better job of distinguishing the 8 best players from the top 16 players and the top 16 players from the top 32 players, because it doesn't come down to one set where there's so much variance, so much matchup. If I go 10-2 overall, it says 11-2. Obviously, the bye doesn't really count. But if I end up with 10 wins and 2 losses after 12 rounds in the old system, I would have 2 more rounds, and I would have a chance to win 2 more games and prove that I'm one of the 8 best players in the tournament. And yes, some number, maybe 1 or 2 of the people who would have gone 11-3, and honestly, probably would have been me, right? I had a phenomenal resistance. I played a really tough schedule, so maybe I would have gone 11-3. I lost to the 11-0. He went 14-0 essentially, right? Like, I would have had a really good resistance, and I probably would have made the tournament top 8 at 11-3. And so under the old system, I feel like this would have been a top 8 result for me. Instead, it's top 16, which means I get 120 less championship points that I would have gotten. It means I miss out on 1 second. I miss out on these sexy playmats that I fucking love. Oh, I wanted this playmat so badly. I didn't get it. I really want the top 8 playmat. And yeah, so I think this is I listened to the Oko podcast with Joe Brown and Sierra. They were talking about the pros and cons of these big top cuts, and Joe was definitely against it, and Sierra was definitely for it. Obviously, like, yes, it is cool that all the X2s make the top cut. Guess what? With 14 rounds, all the X2s still make top cut. If you go X3, you don't deserve the top cut. Some people will bubble into top cut, but I think that's my mentality, is like, well, yeah, it's still X2 cut. And then some X3s that are especially deserving, which, again, maybe I'm biased because it would have been me, because I did really well and I played a really tough schedule and I played the 2 best, I think the 2 best players in the tournament. All due respect to Dylan, who of course did get second place. He did get a double protect to win that top 4 set. And Luca, with his result over the course of the 15 rounds that he played, I think was probably the best or second best player at the tournament. Right, so I lost to the 2 best players of the tournament, in my opinion, and I beat the best player in the tournament as well. Right, like, I was one of the 8 best players in this tournament, and I didn't get that result, and that's just how it is. That's the system we play in. I'm still very happy with the result, but I do think that, like, I wish, like, especially since TCG only has top 8 cut as well, essentially, because even though they have asymmetric cut, it's never more than like 8 or 9 people. And I feel like I've ranted about this on Top Takes before. I'm gonna rant about it on Top Takes again. But yeah, that's my little rant about the tournament format. It's just a little unfair. I'd rather have more rounds of Swiss that more effectively distinguishes who the top 8 players are from the top 16 players, from the top 32 players. Whereas the big top cut, equally good at determining the winner. Andrew probably wins the tournament regardless, right? But the big top cuts would or rather, if he kept winning with the same rate, he would have won the tournament anyways. If he would have won the same number of games to win the tournament. But it would have done a better job of distinguishing the 8th best player from the top 16 players, from the top 32 players, because you just have a bigger sample size of games to work off of. That's my opinion. And I wanted to bring it up because it's my team report and it's my YouTube channel. And with that, let me share the rental code. You guys want to try this team out, right? It's a cool team. So this is the rental code. Definitely recommend that you try it out. I'm really happy with how the team panned out. I'm really happy with the play patterns of the team. I think I don't know if I would change anything specifically. Like, maybe the Farigiraf Terra type. Like, that's it. Like, there's nothing really major that I would want to change about this team. I would speed creep the Miraidon by 1 more point. That's what I would do. Just outspeed their Miraidons consistently. But yeah. The other story I didn't get to tell. Against Junshi, I lose game 1. Because his Miraidon underspeeds my Miraidon. Look at this team. This team does not look like he clicks Trick Room, and I have my Miraidon for Farigiraf. It's Terrid. Miraidon's for Terrid. And he has his Miraidon that's Terrid and Farigiraf. And we both click Helping Hand. And we both click Electric Drift because we both think we're the slowest Miraidon here. And guess what? He's slower. It was crazy. So that also happened. I can't believe that we played. And honestly, we might have speed tied too, for what it's worth, for all I know. But it was just so funny that we both had these slow Miraidons. That was apparently very commonplace in this tournament. Goes to show you that, like, everyone is saying, and by everyone I mean Alex was saying, that you have to play speed ties this format. And I guess what? You don't got to play speed ties this format. You can find a way to opt out of it. And people are getting better and better about finding ways to opt out of these speed ties. And it was really cool to see the team that won in the way they did it. And obviously my team has a lot in common with that team. But I think the play pattern with Parting Shot on Grimmsnarl with Ho-Oh was really, really compelling. It was really fun to use. I had a great time using this team. I'm very, very proud of my tournament run. I want to give a big, big shout out to all the people who helped me throughout this process, starting with Rajan, with Ethan, and with Arsal, who were the people I was bouncing ideas off of for the entire week, trying to get together. Ethan, aka Splatty Daddy, aka Grimmsnarl God. I don't think he's ever been called that, but I'm calling him that. He runs Grimmsnarl every event, and when I came to the conclusion that Grimmsnarl was really good this format, I immediately DM'd him. I said, "Hey, yo, what are you cooking? I think Grimmsnarl is cracked. How do what do I do with this guy?" And he was the one who said, "I think Grimmsnarl Ho-Oh is really good." He had a very different Grimmsnarl Ho-Oh comp that he was using, but he was like, "Yeah, I think Grimmsnarl Ho-Oh is the way to go," and that was one of the first things that pushed me in the direction of Grimmsnarl on this team in the first place. And he was also the person who pushed me to. He said, "Yeah, I dropped T-Wave on my Grimmsnarl, and it was just fine." He was the person who motivated me to finally drop T-Wave for Parting Shot and push me over the edge there. So I don't think this happens without him. Arsal was the person who got me on Grimmsnarl in the first place, and was also so important for throughout my testing to play games with. He was the person who was always available when I said, "Hey, I got to play test this matchup. Are you around?" He was always there. So big shout outs to him, and of course Rajan for running the team with me, for helping me in my Friday freakout where I was like, I'm not even sure if I'm going to show up to the tournament. I need help getting that last few couple mons because I'm going to be on the plane until 2 a.m. Help me out, and he was so essential. He was there for the entire time, and well, he wasn't there for the entire time because he was there. He was gone playing poker on Friday, but yeah, he was really clutch as well. And talking through all the different ideas, he was the person who finally came to the conclusion that Ursaluna had to be on the team. So yeah, big shout outs to those three. Shout outs to Alex for, of course, putting me on the idea in the first place. I'm looking forward to hearing about his run because he also made it to top 16 at this tournament with the Swordfish variant. Not Swordfish, excuse me. Oh my God, it's late. Maridon Ice Rider variant. And made it to top 16, and Paul Chua made it to top 8 with the same team. And he lost. And he said all 3 of his losses were to speed ties this tournament because he was on Timid Maridon. So get fucked. You don't have to run that shit. So I'm excited to hear about what he has to say on the podcast, and we do that. I think if you're watching this the day this comes out, that'll be tonight. Well, we recorded the podcast live on Twitch at Tub Nation TV. And again, if you want to watch him stream and come up with these cool ideas, Tub Nation TV is the place to be. Yeah, shout outs to that. Shout outs to Izzy for the help with getting the Ursaluna, again, last minute decision. I couldn't have gotten it without her. Shout outs to Eric for helping me bounce ideas for the Maridon Ho-Oh, even though we ran very different ideas. He went 8-3 as well. Really cool. Gavin helped me bounce some ideas off of him as well. Yeah, just everyone who's helped out. I'm forgetting someone. Oh, I know I'm forgetting someone. I'm going to be annoyed that I forgot who I was talking to. But yeah, just absolutely everyone who was so helpful throughout this process. I really couldn't have done it without everyone. I'm trying to find my DMs and trying to figure out who did I talk to, and I can't find them. I'm sorry. Everyone else who helped me, y'all the best. I really appreciate all the help. I really appreciate all of the outpouring of support that I got throughout the regional. Everyone who was at Marco's throat for saying that that I didn't that you don't have to run T-Wave on Grimmsnarl because I showed up on stream without it. You don't have to defend me on Twitter. Don't worry about it. Marco's chill. But also, thanks for defending me on Twitter. always fun to see. Yeah, try the team out. It's really cool. I can't believe Ho-Oh is good. Legitimately, I was just like, I get to run Ho-Oh at a tournament. Why would I run boring-ass Caridon stuff, even though it's probably better? Why would I run boring-ass Caridon when I can run Ho-Oh at the tournament? I never get to use Ho-Oh. Yeah, that's a big part of why I ran it. Sorry, I'm just rambling. I'm just really happy. Shout outs to all my channel members. Y'all the best. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Subscribe, seriously. We got some super cool content coming out over the next few weeks with Regulation I coming out. Lots of tournaments that are happening. We got the GC next weekend. You know I'm cooking for that. You know what's up. I don't know how to end this video. I really don't. So I guess I'll just end it now. Bye.